Vivek Ramaswamy joins us now. I know you've been all over the country helping out Donald Trump, but I just want to start with this. You're in the neighborhood of Buck and myself's ages. You've been on a lot of these college campuses, I'm sure, on your presidential campaign, but also you were on them as a student not very long ago. Would you have believed that we would ever be in a situation where a place like UCLA would be banning Jewish students from being able to walk through the campus, that they would be pulling down the United States flag and replacing it with the flag of Palestine all over the country? Could you have foreseen this, Vivek?
So, not with great pleasure, no, but you could see the direction this was going for a very long time. And I'm not trying to claim some sort of level of foresight from before, but even a few years ago, when I wrote my book, Woke Inc., before people really knew what the word woke was, that's where this road ends. And I think what many people may misunderstand even about the current situation is describing it as anti Semitic, while understandable, misses the point, actually. What you're really seeing amongst young people, and you've been seeing this for the last decade or more, is a deep hunger for purpose. They are starved for a cause. They are lost. And when you don't believe in the American flag, you start pledging allegiance to a different flag instead. It could be the transgender flag. It could be the Palestinian flag. It could be, in some cases, even weirdly, the Ukraine flag. And I think that that's a separate debate to be had. But we have this innate hunger for purpose, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And when you want to be part of something bigger than yourself and you no longer believe in God, you no longer believe in your country, you no longer identify as a member of a family or see yourself as an individual, you start believing in new kinds of secular cults instead. And this is just the latest one. And so I think that's really what's happening. It's not specific to this issue. Most students who are protesting on behalf of Palestine have no idea what the heck they're actually even protesting for. You have students on campuses chanting intifada, which they don't realize is actually a complete inversion of the word they're trying to say, which is intifada, the Arab word for uprising. They don't even know what they're chanting. You look at some of those video recordings, that's what you hear. That's the essence of what's going on, is these people are lost. And I think we got to see that before we actually find an actual solution, rather than just playing whack-a-mole, which is what I think many in the conservative movement, frankly, have been trying to do as a response.
Hey, Vivek, it's Buck. On these campuses, we're seeing a level of madness that is surprising to some, but I think for those of us who've been paying attention, this is just the latest iteration of it. This is the latest spasm, if you will, of their lunacy. And I'm reminded a little bit of the movie Aliens. Are you an Aliens fan? Do you remember? I think it just had its anniversary recently. It was released 40 something years ago.
40th anniversary, I think. I
Yeah.
saw it was in the theaters. Yeah, something like that.
I thought it was a great movie, James Cameron movie back in the day. But remember when they say we have to nuke the site from orbit? It's the only way to be sure. No one's suggesting we nuke these campuses, but I just want to know: is there a way to fix these things, or do we just need to separate? Do people that have a recognition of how toxic this has become realize that there's no fixing Columbia University as it currently stands? How do you see that?
Well, look, I think that actually those two things go together. Is building alternative institutions is a necessary next step. And some of those institutions are being built. When you think about the private sector, corporate America, the financial services sector, when you think about academic institutions and universities, that competition does one thing. It provides an alternative for where people are able to go. The likes of University of Austin, Texas, Ralston College, Hillsdale. Think about even places like Ashland University here in Ohio, where I spoke recently. Really smart students, by the way, completely not the goal to be large national name brand institutions, but just pursue excellence in local contexts. I think as those competitors start to draw great students away from the esteemed institutions of yesterday, the Columbias, I mean, even I'm ashamed of the alma maters and the behaviors I've seen in places like Harvard and Yale. That is going to have an effect not just on providing additional choices for students, but I think that's going to change the behaviors of those existing institutions as well. So it's the absence of competition that actually breeds this type of discontent. And so I do think creating new institutions is an answer. So it's not just separation for the sake of separation. It's separation for the sake of actually bringing competition in a marketplace of ideas where it has been lacking. I think part of that solution, though, is we have to offer an alternative vision, especially to that next generation. And this is where the conservative movement has fallen short. We will sit here complaining about one of those religions at a time, right? Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism. You could have your favorite ism. Anti-Semitism now fits that list. I think that each of those religions, those cults, are really just symptoms of that deeper void. And I think we have to, as a movement, go back to being firm about what we actually stand for, right? The individual, family, nation, and God beat race, gender, sexuality, and climate if we have the courage to actually stand for something. And so some of this is on the other side, but some of this is our own problem too, is we've grown lazy as a movement, just criticizing the radical Biden agenda or whatever it is that we're pontificating about, without actually offering an alternative vision of what it means to be an American, what it means to be an individual, what it means to be sovereign. I think sovereignty itself, sovereignty at the level of the individual and the family and the nation, and being a nation under God, those are foreign concepts to the conservative movement of today. It's not exactly what you hear Republican politicians or even commentators talking about today, as opposed to using whatever the latest trope was on social media to criticize some flub of Biden. That's lazy, and it's falling short of what we really need to be doing if we want to fill that vacuum of purpose that accounts for a lot of the lunacy that we're seeing.
Vivek, you are like Buck and myself. You've been very fortunate. You're building a family now. You are obviously trying to spread what I would hope is an antidote to this issue with a lack of purpose that exists across much of American youth. What's the best way for you to do that in your mind as we gear up for the 6-month, basically, starting block here of the election in November? Do you think VP is that play? Have you talked to Trump about that? Do you think that you're in the mix for that? Are there other cabinet positions that to you make sense? I know you're going to be working hard to get Trump elected no matter what, but on an individual basis, what's the most effective version you think of yourself? Where should you go? Where should you be?
So look, I think every person's got to look themselves in the mirror and say, here are my God-given gifts. How am I going to use those to maximize impact on saving our country at a moment where, let's be honest, if we don't get this right in the next 7 years, it's how long it took to win the American Revolution, I don't think we have a country left. And I do think we're in one of those 1776 moments today. And so if Donald Trump is now the George Washington figure of winning that modern American Revolution, took all of our founding fathers, many of them, to each wear their own different hats to really set this nation into motion. A couple things I look at. What are the things we need to accomplish that we can accomplish through executive power if we're successful? 2 mass deportations. One is the mass deportations of millions of illegals in this country who shouldn't be here, seal the border along with it, end birthright citizenship, and once and for all fix that immigration issue in our country. And the second is the mass deportation of about 3 million federal bureaucrats out of Washington, D.C. that should have never been there in the first place, cleaning up that fourth branch, that deep state that I think is the source of the rot and the corruption that infests every layer of government and even our culture. So those are 2 of the things I've been most passionate about in my own presidential campaign. And if I'm able to play a role in doing one or both or the other of those things or both of them, I think I'm going to do everything I can to play my role to restore the country. But in terms of what position different people occupy, that decision belongs to President Trump. It's the beauty of actually having a chief executive who's been an executive, deserves to actually staff the administration and the way he runs the country with the people who he believes are best in each position. He and I have had some great conversations, and I'll be honored to play some, hopefully, significant role in reviving this country.
Just don't
I'm
forget
less
your
attached
friends when
to
you're
me
Treasury Secretary,
and more attached to
buddy.
the country. Okay.
Do you think you're still in the running? Do you think you're still in the running for VP, or do you think someone else is going to be in that role, and maybe there's
I'm not going to
somewhere
play.
else that would?
I'm not going to, out of respect to my conversations with President Trump and for the decisions he needs to make, I'm not going to play the game of, musical chairs of who or speculation. What I will say is, I've told him this: is I'm excited to serve in whatever capacity maximizes impact for the country. We've had a great relationship, and I think there's a lot of people, by the way, in our bench that can play a lot of important roles, each of which we're going to need to save the country. And so whether that's people from the White House positions to the VP to cabinet level positions, all of them are important, and I'm here to play my part. And so I'm optimistic we're going to be successful. We can't count our chickens before they hatch. I want to say a word about this too, is this discussion presumes that there's some sort of victory that we can take for granted in November. Remember, just a couple of years ago, we had this red wave that was supposed to come. That red wave never came. And I think that we're actually potentially on track to being complacent and seeing that same risk play out unless we actually step up and do things differently this time around, both in terms of articulating our alternative vision and in terms of the legwork of execution, right? A vision without execution is a hallucination. That's what Einstein, that's what Thomas Edison said. And I think it's true every bit today in politics as it is in any other realm. You don't like early voting? Too bad. Got to play by the rules to win in order to change the rules to be what you want them to be. And so, I think that it is important to have transition plans and what comes afterwards. And I think President Trump's being very thoughtful about that. And I'm hopeful to play an important role in saving this country. But we're only going to get there if we actually succeed by decisive margins. And let's be honest, a 50.1 margin doesn't work this time around. I think that, let's be very frank, a landslide minus some shenanigans is still a decisive victory. And that's what we're going to need at a moment where we're skating on thin ice, where we have decisive majorities in not just the Senate, but also the House. To combine that with control of the White House, that's what it's going to take to politically revive this country. And so let's not get ahead of ourselves as well to assume that there's some outcome we're planning for.
Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, come back, talk to us again soon. It's going to be an important 6 months or so here.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys, and keep up the good work of highlighting things that other people aren't talking about. I like that you guys do it, and we need more of that.
Thanks so much, man. Good to talk to you.
Thanks.
May is the month for moms, and few organizations witness the decision that mothers make for the life of their child more so than Preborn. Preborn's network of clinics exists exclusively to offer love, life, and support to pregnant women who are feeling scared and alone and being pressured to make the ultimate choice for their unborn child. When a distressed mother comes to Preborn, she is welcomed with open arms and is offered a free ultrasound to hear and see the precious life inside of her. So often, when that happens, she will choose life. This Mother's Day, you can help bring life to a mother in need and an at-risk baby. One ultrasound is only $28. But look, every penny you can donate to this amazing nonprofit, Preborn, every penny goes toward helping moms make the decision to keep that tiny baby alive and give it life. Think about how you're saving 2 lives here, really. There's so much goodness that is brought into the world when the right decision is made. And if you become a monthly sponsor, you will receive pictures and stories of lives that you have helped to save. Using your cell phone, dial pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say baby, or visit preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. Sponsored by Preborn.